charges case. Let's talk a little bit more about that. What could the implications be? What does it mean for the investor fraternity? We've got Mayuresh Joshi as well as Sandeep Parekh both joining in on the show right now. Gentlemen, hi, morning. Mayuresh, if I could start off with you. I mean, now that the case is resolved, if this is really some sort of a messaging as to how perhaps, foreign short sellers can exploit India. And case in point, not just Hindenburg, but the very recent Jane Street as well.
Morning, Aisha. Morning, Sandeep. I think two things. One, I think a large part of that was getting built in the price in the past few weeks. With this final order, I think the kind of apprehensions that were still lingering around, if any, I think finally get clear. And yes, you're absolutely right. I think the messaging that goes to the ecosystem, that if you probably have some element of play here as far as the Indian markets are concerned, specifically by foreign short sellers, I think there is nothing substantive that is probably there to back you up. I think you are going to end with that. In fact, guys, I think the investors have become very, very savvy as we speak. In fact, there were a few allegations again in the last few weeks by some other group as well. And the investors just shrugged it away. So in my opinion, again, I think the messaging to the ecosystem is loud and clear. Again, I think in terms of a perspective from the Adani Group stocks itself, I think a large part of that was just stated, but I think it's sentimentally positive with the final hearing probably coming in their favor in the entirety.
Sandeep, what do you think this could lead to? Could it also lead to perhaps tweaks in the regulatory framework itself? I mean, could we see some mandated disclosures for, for foreign firms, for instance, this short and distort kind of strategy won't really work? Is that the regulatory framework change that we need right now?
So, morning. I think whatever changes have to be made have already been made. I don't think there's any further changes which are expected from SEBI with respect to amending regulations. As you know, short selling itself is difficult in India because, the availability of borrowed stock is quite difficult to obtain. Most people trade in the F&O market to take longer term positions. And out of that is, I think most of the people are kind of have weekly or monthly targets and not kind of long-term views. So, like I said, I don't expect anything further to come out of this except for, I think there have been changes to amendment of laws with respect to ultimate beneficial owner, which is actually being counterproductive because, I know some of the investors had to leave India because they could not certify the last human being, which is part of the human chain.
Mayuresh, what's the drawdown for the Indian investors? Because, this somewhere just tells you don't overreact to foreign noise sometimes.
Well, absolutely. I think that messaging has probably come through in terms of the maturity shown by the Indian investors. Obviously, when this came the first time around, there was a knee-jerk reaction and a sharp one at that. But I think over time, Indian investors have probably realized that if there is some element of noise that is getting created without any substantive evidence, I think that is going to get dismissed by the investors per se. Again, I think when you're probably targeting a big group, you really need to have all evidences, all the substantive workings in place in terms of both validation as well as verification of whatever you're trying to claim through. And that probably falls apart. And that is what the investors are probably seeing through as we speak, at least as far as the bigger groups are concerned. I think if there are some sort of an allegation like this, I think the investors are just shrugging it off, taking it in stride. Unless some implications are probably proved at some point of time at a later stage, I think that's a different story altogether. But at least as far as the big groups are concerned, if there are any sort of allegations that are being raised or might get raised, investors have become pretty smart in terms of analyzing this and not reacting very harshly as we've seen in the past.
Right. Sandeep, hi, morning. Just want to understand what you are making of this entire order coming in and the regulatory framework that's at play over here. Now, a market manipulation accusation was put on Adani. How solid do you think the Indian governance framework is right now to make sure that there is no oversight in terms of any governance vulnerabilities that Indian players have, so that foreign parties or foreign institutions don't have to come in and start probing?
I think the framework is pretty solid, I would say. In fact, I would go one step further and say I think I think proof of pudding is in the eating it. And if you look at all the IPOs which are happening, all the large private equity from the world, they're all going for IPOs. Indian investors have confidence in the markets. Foreign investors have confidence in the market. You're looking at IPOs 10, 20, I mean, nothing is below like 5,000-10,000 crore rupees. So I think people are really confident of the market, and that would never happen if they didn't have confidence in the integrity of the data which is coming from corporate India. I think it's a pretty solid system that we have based on transparency. And in fact, I would go one step further in this case of Adani. I think most of the allegations they pieced together for public data. So, which really goes to show that I think people are putting out data in the public domain.
All right. With this, we'll let you go on that, gentlemen. Thank you so much, Mayuresh and Sandeep, for taking the time out and speaking with us.